Top of the day, beautiful people. Happy Wednesday. It is June 15, 2022, day 133 of year 4, reading through the books of the law and the prophets, and of the 4-year consecutive day count, day 1151. Today, we're picking back up on page 217 of the Oahspe, and then if we get some time today, we're going to hop over to the meditation book on page 184 where we left off the other day. Auntie, shalom. Alicia, ya. Shalom, shalom. All right, y'all. Let's get started. Lavon. Greetings. Father, we thank you for another day to be present and accounted for. Still searching for truth. All right, y'all. Hey, look, y'all get a chance. Mom, shalom. Y'all get a chance to go look at the book of S, what I showed to y'all about America. Auntie, I know you was looking at the other day, but did you go to the book of S, where it was talking about Abraham Lincoln? It's kind of weird reading, at least to me at first, it's just kind of weird reading a book that I kind of consider like the Bible and reading something, although Abraham is history, it's like a more recent history, so to speak, and not even more recent, but yeah, still kind of recent. And it's kind of like, I don't know, because sometimes you just, when you read stuff, it's like, okay, for it to be true, it got to happen like billions of years ago. I don't know. Maybe that's just my faulty thinking, but history is history, regardless of how far or how near to us from the future. I'm not from the future, from the past it is. Shayla, great rising. Audrey, shalom, shalom. But listen, Trina, hey girl, hey. I was doing a little bit more looking on it yesterday. Back here in the book of Acts, it also mentions a seer. They call her a seeress, right? Somebody who sees like a prophet. Most prophets are seers, but not all seers are prophets. They call her a seeress, right? And they named her. So I'm like, that's interesting. So I started looking into I went to Google and I Googled this seer's name. You know how presidents, when they're in office, for spiritual things, it's always this prophet or preacher or something that they go to. I ain't gonna say that they own staff or whatever, but it seems to me, at least in my research, that every person that gets into office and become president, there is a prophet or a seer, somebody dedicated by Yah to speak to that president, right? Just like the kings had prophets come to them, or the priests or whatever. It seemed that way, right? So I was like, well, I wonder if she was the prophet for President Lincoln at the time. Look, so I went and I was reading the account and I was reading about her. But do you know this particular seer, this woman, her name was it Hattie? Hold on, let me just jump to it. I was like, oh, that's a black woman. Sister Hattie. Hold on. No, Book of S. Hold on. The Seeress president. Hold on. What was her name? Because her name was in here that time. A Seeress. Okay. There was living in Washington a Seeress 1313. Nettie. Her name is Nettie. Nettie Maynard. Mainard. Yeah. Mainard. Nettie. Nettie. Just in case y'all want to go look her up. Yes, Audrey, go look into it. I'm still looking into it, right? So she apparently is a seer, and she grew up with spiritual gifts working through her, because I read like a little autobiography on her. I shared a little stuff that I pulled up too, just in case you're looking into it if you ain't come across it. But do you know she also had the gift of automatic writing, just like John Monroe here, who wrote this? You know how people in the church, some people still can't get, well, I don't know about the automatic writing. Well, you know about automatic talking, don't you? It's called prophecy. Somebody stand up and the spirit of Yah come upon them and they begin to prophesy. It's the same thing, but the automatic writing just happens with the hand, right? So she had that gift as well. And there were some things that she had written out. Her father noticed that gift in her when she was really young. And so when he would notice her hand would get like restless or whatever, he gave her a pen and paper, and she just began to write out prophecies. And she was a little girl, and they would look at the stuff afterwards, and it was like, there's no way like you was in your right, like you could not have written anything like this. Like somebody is writing through you, like a greater force is writing through you, and instructions will come through Miss Nettie Maynard or whatever, and directly for the president, right? I was like, this is amazing. Y'all gotta go look into it. Okay, so I was just saying that is super super interesting, but it has a lot to do um, with releasing the slaves at Guantanamo. So Guantanamo or America was set aside. It said it. We read at the beginning that Guantanamo was set aside for the end, for the Cosmon era, to bring, I'm gonna just put in my own words, to bring light that there is only one creator. Like the big showdown is gonna happen in America during the cosmic time. So the focus will be on America. And so it also goes through here and it talks about wow, not just why America is blessed, but each continent served its certain purpose for spiritual things during whatever time. And it was also blessed as well, just like during the Cosmon era, which is why nothing, I mean, you got little things that happen over here in America, but for the most part, America, the hand of Yah has been on America, right? Because he said this is the place where he's gonna um, raise people up at, right? And the different nations, they will begin to come to America, but America will be the place where everybody trying to get out of America. I know we got some foolish stuff happening, but some of this stuff we getting some more pieces of the puzzle. Some of this stuff starting to make a little bit more sense. First thing in the morning, they know. Why don't they just come knock on the door? They called your my phone for me. But y'all, I'm super excited about this. But we won't actually get to the book of S together for like another few months. But I just want to tell y'all so y'all can read ahead if you got the time. You just gotta go check it out. The book of S, chapter 20. Yesterday I posted in the comment section. I put it in the community section. I posted on Facebook in the comment section. Everywhere. When you get a chance, go read it. And whatever you pull up, like resources and stuff you connect with, share it with me, please. You know, I only got so much time and stuff. So I look forward to some of the stuff that y'all share with me. Did you find out about this? You know about this? Hey, look what I came across. And sometimes some of that stuff y'all share I hadn't come across yet, but it's a great help to me and helping me put this piece of the puzzle together. Okay. All right, y'all. So let's hop to where we at? Page 217. Okay, chapter 29. Okay. Yesterday this was talking about what was it? Oh, Obi, the false god, right? Or the day before yesterday, because yesterday was a Sabbath. Okay, so Obi was found at the middle of that knot. Francis, shalom, shalom. Okay, chapter 29. Joab heard the story of Turbi, and he said unto him, since I have heard these things, I am resolved to bind Thor, the false, and his lords, and send them with thee to Ahoan. Turbi said, this would be my light. Excuse me. And after light, you got reference number 28, and it says delight. Oh yeah, that was one of the ones I mentioned. Audrey also said even the first book of God is good. I heard a lot about Utah, and it literally make you want to learn more about each state. Yes, the first book of God, as a matter of fact, and that starts on page 308. We'll be there shortly. Yeah, chapter 20, page 308. Utah, Tennessee, um, Utah, Tennessee, Illinois, Central America, Indiana, North Ohio, Pennsylvania, Lake Erie, Panama, which is considered a portion of the Middle Kingdom. All that stuff is in here, y'all. Y'all gotta read ahead if you can. Okay. Thank you, Audrey. Verse 2. No, I'm sorry. Let me just read it all again. Verse 1. Joab heard the story of Turbi, and he said unto him, since I have heard these things, I am resolved to bind Thor, the false, and his lords, and send them with thee to Ahoan. Turbi said, this would be my light. because Thor insulted Ahoan, it would be well for Ahoan to restore him to his senses. Oahspe said, "Tarry then a little while, and my physicians will bind them, that they do no harm in their madness, and I will have them delivered into the boat." And so after my physicians will bind them, after will is reference number 29, and for will down at the bottom it says shall. My physicians shall bind them. Okay. So the proper persons bound up Thor and his lords with bands of cord, for they were wild and delirious, and after that they were put into Turby's boat, ready to be carried away. Oahspe said to Turby, "Greeting to Ahoan in the name of Jehovah, and say thou to him that, according to the laws of these heavens, a false god or false lord, who hath led the people away from the Father, shall, after his deliverance, be made to reteach the truth to his deceived spirits, neither shall he be promoted higher or faster than the lowest of his former subjects, for which, after Ahoan's companions have restored Obi and his lords to soundness of mind, he and his lords shall be again bequeathed with their own kingdoms. In the meantime, I will, in the same plateau, begin the establishment of a new kingdom to the Father out of these crazed Druha." So just a quick recap from the other day about the knot. That knot comprised was full of the souls in Obi's kingdom. Obi, remember, he was telling everybody he was really Thor. There was really a Thor, but he had been passed away, right? So Obi had taken on the name of Thor, and everybody is worshiping him as Thor. So when his kingdom got turned upside down, because all of his subjects, his slaves, everybody that followed him believed that he was the only true God, when all the craziness started happening, they started rushing to him for help. And that's how it became a knot, right? So he was at the middle of the knot. By the time they unballed the knot and got all the souls from around Obi, he himself and his lords, they were delirious and they were crazy and they were screaming like maniacs, right? They was all scared, like, my G, you was the most highest. Why is you down here balled up in fetal position screaming like you don't know what's going on? Like, save me. But he was warned about that before that even happened. He said, listen, if an avalanche should come through here, avalanche is a ship of fire. If an avalanche comes through here, it's going to strike fear in the hearts of your entire kingdom, and they ain't going to know what to do, and they're going to come rushing upon you, and you can find yourself in the middle of a knot, my G. And so he was like, yeah, get out of here, go say that to somebody else. But he didn't listen, and that's where they found him, at the middle of the knot, right? So after they restore him, they're going to give him a chance to rule his own kingdom again. And they don't have to do that, but they have to do that during this period, because everybody that Obi or Thor led astray, he has to unlead astray. And he has to bring all of them up before he can even pass on to the next grade. Everybody that he has led astray, he has to teach them all the truth that he knows. And everybody in his kingdom has to be on his level so they can all go to the next level together. That's some wisdom from the Most Holy, right? You ain't going nowhere. Everybody that you deceive, go get all of them. All of y'all need to be on the same level of wisdom, and all of you are going to come up together because you're brothers and sisters. Let's go. Clean up your mess, right? Okay. Turby, hold on, let me just read this verse again. Verse 3. Greeting to Ahoan in the name of Jehovah, and say thou to him that, according to the laws of these heavens, a false god or false lord, who hath led the people away from the Father, shall, after his deliverance, be made to reteach the truth to his deceived subjects, neither shall he be promoted higher or faster than the lowest of his former subjects, for which, after Ahoan's companions have restored Obi and his lords to soundness of mind, he and his lords shall be again bequeathed with their own kingdoms. In the meantime, I will, in the same plateau, begin the establishment of a new kingdom to the Father out of these crazed Druhas. Turby and his companions then re-entered their boat and set sail at once for Ahoan's kingdom. Thor the false and his lords wailing and crying with fear, knowing not any man, nor woman, nor child. Joab now turned his attention to the host of panic stricken Druhas who were constantly forming themselves in knots and yet being as rapidly severed as the Etherians. To Athavra, he said, how more helpless is a deranged spirit than a mortal? They float on their own wild thoughts. At one time, they fly from us before the wind. At another, they run together or upon us like molten gum, and we cannot keep them off. Athavra said, behold the wisdom of the Father in creating man in a corporal body. What a glorious anchorage for a young or a weak or deranged spirit. What a home a corporal body is. How better we could manage these crazed ones. How better we could manage these crazed ones were they thus provided. Excuse me, Jen, shalom. Listen, your flesh grounds your spirit. He was like, listen, it's easier to get mortals under control because their spirit is grounded by flesh. Let me read that again. Listen. Joab now turned his attention to the host of panic-stricken Druhas who were constantly forming themselves in knots and yet being as rapidly severed by the Etherians. To Athavra he said, how more helpless is a deranged spirit than a mortal? They float on their own wild thoughts. At one time they fly from us before the wind. At another they run together or upon us like molten gum, and we cannot keep them off. Athavra said, behold the wisdom of the Father in creating man in a corporal body, or giving him flesh, giving us flesh, right? What a glorious anchorage for a young or a weak or deranged spirit. What a home a corporal body is. How better we could manage these crazed ones were they thus provided. Joab said, which showeth us the way we must proceed to restore them. Since we cannot create corporal bodies for them, the Father hath given us power to provide them subjectively for the time being. So, look, just real quick. So, me and my sister was talking the other day, just kind of going through this whole like reincarnation thing, just a little bit while we kind of trying to like think it through. And so it would make sense that there is not such a thing as reincarnation because of the I ain't gonna say, I guess the high accounts of spirits who have already lost their flesh trying to come back and possess those who are living, like they're trying to get back into bodies. I'm like, oh, I ain't never really thought about that. I was like, but that's interesting. Remember, the Oahspe says that the whole teaching about reincarnation was actually thought up or created by Druhas who wanted to get back in the flesh that had already passed on from here, right? And if they don't continue to keep growing, they just kind of hang around the lowest heaven that's right next to earth, where we can readily hear the spiritual activity going on, good and bad. That's psychics and different ones who get information, doing different types of seances, whether for good or for evil. Though a lot of times, um, they could be speaking to the Most Holy, right, or to Yah, but a lot of times, and even in here, I forget exactly where. I want to say no, it's not in the Book of S. It's the book that comes right after the Book of S, the Book of Judgment. Go read that. I'm telling y'all to read a lot of stuff, but we're going to get to it, but we ain't going to get to it for a few months. In the Book of Judgment, right after the Book of S, which is about page, I wrote it down, like page 663 or 665, something like that. Robin, shalom, shalom. It talks about how those during the Cosmon era, during like our era, people who reach out to speak to spirits because they've pretty much forgotten that there is only one true creator and he has hosts working under him, gods and goddesses or whatever, that he would allow, just like he allowed these false gods to build up kingdoms and stuff and do all this, he's going to allow for a period of time for those who actually reach out to the spirit realm to be deceived, right? He said, let them tell them lies because they're not searching for me. Let them tell them lies. Some of them will get the truth, but a lot of them will be deceived. I'm like, oh my goodness. I'm like, well, I hope I'm not in that group. I was like, Father, let me not be deceived. We're trying to figure this out, right? But the book of judgment, oh my gosh, it makes sure it'll make your, I ain't gonna say it'll make the hair on your arms and on your shoulders, and if you got hair on your back and legs, it'll make it stand up. It ain't got nothing on the book. I mean, the book of Revelation ain't got nothing on the book of judgment. I'm like, oh my goodness. But anyway, I said all that to say that the whole teaching about reincarnation was drummed up from the Druhas, the ones who had lost their bodies and didn't want to progress anymore. They wanted to stay here on the earth, right? So I'm like, oh, that would make sense. Because if this is just a level that we should be progressing through the entire time we're here, granted, we live and we get caught up in certain things, but from the time going on, even nature teaches us that we should be constantly growing and progress until it's time for us to pass from this grade in life, right? And move on to where we no longer have these physical bodies. While we're here, we should be grounded enough with the flesh that by the time we finish this grade, we shouldn't have any problems with getting to the next few levels and getting away from here, right? It's really, really interesting. Okay. Oahspe said, which showeth us the way we must proceed to restore them. Since we cannot create corporal bodies for them, the Father hath given us power to provide them subjectively for the time being. Thus proceeded Oahspe and Athara, first walling the place around with fire, so that none of the Druhas could escape, and then dividing them into thousands of groups, making subjective bodies for them to which they bound themselves willingly, and which prevented them from fastening to one another. Okay, so after dividing them into thousands of groups, after groups, it has reference number 30, and at the bottom it says thousands of groups by means of fire also, then making subjective bodies. So when they made these subjective bodies for them, the spirit, as soon as they saw them, they went and inhabited them, right? Not knowing that they would be grounded, so they can't keep doing this whole knot thing. This is I want to say crazy, but it's more interesting than crazy. It's giving me more of an understanding of our bodies and flesh and how we operate here, and some of the crazy things I've seen and experienced with the spiritual realm. Oh, great spirit, you're welcome. Tiffany, hey girl, hey. We're on page 218, y'all, down on verse 8. Thus proceeded Oahspe and Athara, first walling the place around with fire, so none of the Druhas could escape, and then dividing them into thousands of groups, making subjective bodies for them, to which they bound themselves willingly, and which prevented them from fastening to one another. This is what look, see, I didn't even read, look. This is what Druhas call reincarnation in another world. And whilst they were thus provided temporarily by their teachers and governors and nurses, many of them imagined themselves to be kings and queens and high priests and even lords and gods. For more than 100 days, Oahspe and Athara labored in the above manner, and the physicians and nurses and Essenars labored to restore the minds of the people, and they mastered the adversity and had them well nigh all restored and disciplined when messengers came from Fragapati greeting, saying, behold, the dawn of Dan is passing swiftly, and I must yet visit the Lord gods in the different heavens of the earth. It is therefore my decree that Athava return to Monroe and resume the throne, and that Oahspe return also, and join me as my student and companion on my journeys. Send these my commandments to Ohoan, greeting in my name, and he will provide a Lord to rule over the delivered knot of Oahspe. And I can't stress enough, Mariko Salama. Remember, the Druhas are nothing more than humans who have passed away and no longer have their fleshly bodies, which the church mislabels and calls demons or satanic spirits. No, my G, that's your brethren and your sisterin, right? They didn't pass certain levels while they were here. Now they got to go through a whole nother process to get away from here and keep growing because they messing with everybody here, right? Give me a whole new outlook on like deliverance and stuff. So Joab and Athavra were relieved by a lord appointed by Ahoan, and his name was Sukkah Wichau, an atmospherian pupil of Samati of 400 years and of great resolution and proficiency. So Joab provided Sukkah Wichau with a throne and left 4 million teachers, nurses, and physicians with him, and with the other million, Joab and Athavra departed for Monroe in Harati. Now, as for the cruisers, the swift messengers with Arinu, hold on, Aruni, I keep messing this name up. Aruni. I probably messed that up. Ariuni. Yeah, I think it's Ariuni. Okay. Now, as for the cruisers, the swift messengers with Ariuni, as soon as the knot was safely untied and Obi and his lords bound and delivered into Turbi's keeping to be sent to Ahoan, they departed, having recorded the proceeding in Aruni's diary. Fragapati, having heard of the success of Joab in delivering the knot, determined to honor him on his reception at Monroe. Accordingly, Fragapati sent heralds out to Horashi, proclaiming a day of recreation and inviting as many as chose to come to Monroe to receive Joab. The proper officers provided musicians, flags, banners, and fireworks suitable for the enjoyment of hundreds of millions of the inhabitants of Harati. Others provided reception boats, 1,000 to go part way to meet Joab's ship. Fragapati afterwards said of this matter, I had policy in this. Joab was to be the next god of earth and her heavens, and whatsoever would win whatsoever would win the love, the admiration, and the awe of his unlearned subjects would contribute to their resurrection. Excuse me. And at the beginning of verse 15, before Fragapati's name, there's reference number 31, and that says down at the bottom. So it came to pass when Joab returned to Monroe, he was received in great honor and majesty and in lights of unusual splendor. Okay, so the next chapter is chapter 30. We at 28 minutes. I think we're just going to keep reading for a little bit for today, y'all. Okay, chapter 30. So for one day there was great rejoicing in Monroe, and when it was ended, the people retired to their respective places. The lights were raised for business. Fragapati said to Athavra, come thou and resume Jehovah's throne. As for myself, I will go now and establish another habitation in Zeredho, and after that I will visit the Lord gods of the divisions of the earth. And when I have completed these labors, it will be near the end of the dawn of Dan. See to it, therefore, that all who wish to prepare for the third resurrection, hold on. See to it, therefore, that all who wish to prepare for the third resurrection be duly notified. And now, when Fragapati had risen up from the throne, swift messengers were announced from Sethines, the inhabitor of earth. The marshals were commanded to admit them, and presently the swift messengers came in, greeting in Jehovah's name. They said, Sethines sends love to Fragapati. When the resurrection of this dawn is come, Sethines will visit Monroe, and he will also bring with him onesie. Sounds weird. We said the name before. Onesie, I think about baby onesies. Okay. And he will also bring with him onesie first deliverer of brides and bridegrooms of the first harvest of the earth. When the message had been thus delivered, there was great rejoicing in the capital. Fragapati thanked the messengers in the Father's name, and after that the swift messengers withdrew. Presently, Fragapati withdrew also, taking Hoab and Hapaka with him, and when they had departed out of the capital and came to the Avalanza, the marshals had the accompanying host assembled 10,000,000, and so they entered the ship, and amidst music and rejoicings, they departed, going in the direct going direct to the kingdom of Yima, Lord God of Shem in her heavens. Remember, Shem is and here, according to this, is the lands of India. Yima had been notified. Excuse me. Okay. Sorry, y'all. Yima had been Yima had been notified of their coming and had a Pied Mazar, or in parentheses is rowboat, had a rowboat made in order to go and meet them. Pied Mazar was sufficient to carry 10,000 musicians, 30,000 rowers, and 200,000 travelers, and such were the numbers who embarked on her to meet Fragapati. 3 years had now elapsed since Yima set out to establish the Father's kingdom and in the heavens of Shem and save through messengers. Little was known in Monroe of Yima's labors. Fragapati had said of him, Yima liveth with the voice, he cannot err. Err. In the seventh diaphragm of the East AP, the vessels met, and Fragapati opened the lower division of the Avalanza and took in Yima's boat and crew and passengers amidst music and rejoicings. And after due ceremonies, Fragapati caused the Avalanza to proceed, conducted by Leaps, one of Yima's messengers, and they proceeded rapidly until they arrived at Ashtoreth, the capital of Yima's kingdom in atmosphere, first grade, and resting upon the earth. Chapter 31. After Yima's appointment by Fragapati, he had come to these regions, and, finding great darkness upon both spirits and mortals, he besought Jehovah to know the cause and cure thereof. The voice of Jehovah came to Yima, saying, whether spirits or mortals, they seek rather to obey their own self desires than my commandments. Behold, I send them to Apollo, and he gave them intercourse betwixt the two worlds, angels and mortals. And for a season they held up their heads and remembered me and my kingdoms. But presently they turned everything upside down and built on their own account. I had shown them that by industry and perseverance they could attain to knowledge and power. But because mortals discovered that prophecy could come to the spirits of the dead, they ceased to perfect themselves and grew up in idleness. The angels loved not to labor to achieve my exalted heavens, being contented with the lowest, and they likewise fell in darkness, forgetting me and my higher places above. I called out to my son Osiris, saying, go thou down to the earth and her heavens, and build them up in my name. Yea, thou shalt wall them apart, that there shall be no communion betwixt the two worlds, save to my chosen. And Osiris came and fulfilled my commandments. To mortals he provided them that no spirit could come to them. And as for the spirits that infested the earth about, he drove them away and colonized them, and he cut them off from the earth. And for a season, mortals prospered under my judgments, and they sought to improve the talents I created withal. But again, and after again, it has a reference number 32, and at the bottom it says, again have they. But again, they confounded my judgments and perverted my laws. Every man on earth hath a philosophy of his own. Every spirit in these heavens hath a philosophy of his own, and there is no uniformity between any of them. Hear me then, my son. Thou shalt not teach as Osiris did, nor yet as Apollo, but pursue a mean betwixt the two. Thou shalt select them, permitting certain spirits to return to mortals, and permitting certain mortals to attain Suis and Sargus, and to see and commune with spirits. But thou shalt provide them in judgment, making the process of intercommunion a secret amongst mortals. For in this thou shalt shut off the Druhas of heaven and the Druks on earth. Behold, my son Samati will come this way. Labor thou with him in Zarathustra. In God's hands have I given my decrees. He shall build on the earth. Build thou in heaven. As he buildeth for mortals, build thou for the spirits of the intermediate world. But keep thou open the doorway to my holy places in the heavens above. Chapter 32. Yima inquired of Jehovah, and the voice answered him, saying, Go thou from place to place in these heavens, and prove thy power. To the ignorant, power is antecedent in gaining the judgment. After power, wisdom. The fool saith, What canst thou do that I cannot? But when he seeth the power that cometh from my hand, he openeth his ears and eyes to teach men and angels to unite. How have they not failed on all hands? Mortals have said, It is good to be good, but it is not practicable. Practicable. Practical. No, it says practicable. Okay. Mortals have said, It is good to be good, but it is not practicable. Forgive me if I said that wrong. They have said, It is wise to be wise, but wisdom runneth in 1,000 roadways, every man for himself. The angels of the regions have said, It is good for us to unite into kingdoms, to have gods and lords, but who can unite us? Shall we sell our liberty to one person? But they will not unite. They dwell in harmony. Everyone taketh the earnings of another. The profit of one is injury of others. They are barren of united good. Jehovah said, One kingdom may have many good men and many good women, but be of no good as a kingdom. Jehovah said, One kingdom may have many good men and many good women, but be of no good as a kingdom. I measure not the individuals, but the entire household. Well, that's good. I measure not the excuse me. I measure not the individuals, but the entire household. I judge the virtue of a kingdom by its combined harvest delivered unto my keeping. When a kingdom is aggregating to itself more wisdom and virtue, the amount of its increase is my harvest. When a kingdom cannot retain its own members, it is falling away from me. The uprightness of its few is as nothing in my sight. The secret of the power of a kingdom lieth in its capacity to aggregate in my name and obey my commandments. I read that again. That's good for any group, any whatever you want to call yourself doing. When a kingdom is aggregating to itself more wisdom and virtue, the amount of its increase is my harvest. When a kingdom cannot retain its own members, it is falling away from me. The uprightness of its few is as nothing in my sight. The secret of the power of a kingdom lieth in its capacity to aggregate in my name and obey my commandments. For 100 days, Yima went through the lower heavens, displaying the miracles of the upper heavens, and his hosts, many of whom traveled with him, enlisted pupils, particularly collecting the spirits of young children. And in 100 days, he had many millions of spirits, abracadabras, mostly helpless wanderers. With these, he repaired to Ashtaroth and made ready to found his kingdom. Jehovah spake to him, saying, Fear not, my son, because of the helplessness of thy subjects. He who would start a new kingdom is wise in choosing none who have hobbies of their own. Whosoever goeth forth in my name, I will be with him. Yema inquired of Jehovah who should be appointed assistant God, and the voice answered, Thule. So Yema anointed Thule, and he made Habal chief marshal of the capital. Again, the voice of Jehovah came to Yema, saying, Thou shalt appoint unto Shem 100 lords, and they shall have dominion over mortals. Hear thou the voice of thy Creator. Through my son Zarathustra will I establish temples to my lords and gods, and thou shalt so provide thy heavenly kingdom, that thy lords shall inhabit the temples, communing with the rabbis, who shall be called God ears. But the communion betwixt spirits and mortals shall be known only to the God ears and the sub priests under them. But mortals shall be left to believe that these fathers have attained to spirit communion by great purity and wisdom. We definitely see that in the Bible, right? Especially in Israel with the priests and how the people had to go to the priest and to, get wisdom and all that stuff. Likewise, when Druhas manifest to mortals, it shall not be countenanced, but as a mark of evil raised up against truth. Let me read that again. Likewise, let me just read verse 10 again. Again, the voice of Jehovah came to Yema, saying, Thou shalt appoint unto Shem 100 lords, and they shall have dominion over mortals. Hear thou the voice of thy Creator. Through my son Zarathustra will I establish temples to my lords and gods, and thou shalt so provide thy heavenly kingdom, that thy lords shall inhabit the temples, communing with the rabbis, who shall be called God ears, but the communion betwixt spirits and mortals shall be known only to the God ears and to the sub priests under them. But mortals shall be left to believe that these fathers have attained to spirit communion by great purity and wisdom. Likewise, when Druhas manifest to mortals, it shall not be countenanced, but as a mark of evil raised up against truth. And when thou hast established thy kingdom, thou shalt cut off the supplies of the Druhas, so they will become borrowers from thy people. In this manner, they will in time consent to labor. Yema then appointed 100 lords who became as the roots of the tree of heaven. The Oshoan lords were Ithwa, Yastaz, Micros, Jub, Zarust, Hom, Poreas, Vediv, Nasha, Cope, and Dron. And it has, after Dron, reference number 33, which says Cope, Dron, Usac, Kud-A, and Thrakton. Okay. The Theastes lords were Kashvri, Tusht, Yain, Amesh, Amisha, Armate, Wave, Vehois, Vestavia, and Komek. The general lords were called Ashem with voice, that is to say, Ashem Vohu, lords in chief, given for the kingdoms of the sun in the land of Shem. They were, and forgive me, I know I'm about to screw these names up, Shanoata, Zetheus, Mutu, Eroi, Cassius, Sitere, Shekeah, and after Shekeah has reference number 34, which has Shah with a H, Keah, Shekeah. Theratim, Gane, Tober, Shachi, Habar Patis, Goma, who is used, Hackdot, Nerana, Tibalath, Kivar, Darun, Darunasia, Hors, Medio Shimo, Runas, Geo Morati Tishchi, Be Arahaya, Zartushta, K. Boryawich, Wichto Binyas, and Sipitama. Yeah, I wish I could just skip over it like I used to do reading through Chronicles. And Yima made these 25 lords controllers of the voice, with mortals to take the place of Samati after the death and ascension of Zarathustra, for which reason they were called the Asham Vohu. The lords of farmers and herdsmen were more names. Goama, Hoshag, Tamur, Jamshed, Frieden, Minochinabani, and Hus. The lord of seafaring men were Thetas, Merjan, Nias, Kaftras, Thevia, Agreft, Ardus Eor, Tanafar, Aviotas, Marganishichata, Hoaxestania, and Vatuan. The lordesses of births and mothers, the Hotechi, the Hochi were Kaviti, Wehoots, Haud, Anakorehate, Juves, Wasita, Hapani, Chit Niverchow, Avi Pohu, Kadhan, Hukrovoa, Dion, Bakwa, and Gemosi. The lords of buildings were Irathamra, Hera, Thratchna, Hades, Hutu, Koigaga, Huriawati, Vivision, Mutahaga, Keois, Maceo, Ames, Hodo, Trusivi, Verikampaga, and Sui. The lords of timekeeping, Aches, who had dominion of the change of watch, were Kaparastastras, Vitimohu, and Hawichwak. Jehovah spake to Yima, saying, In this day will I bless thy labor, because mortals have ceased to believe in immortality. They have shut off their intercourse with Juhas, for which reason thou shalt establish pure communion with thy pure lords and none other. Yima sent his lords to their several places, and every lord took with him 1,000 attendant angels. Yima said to them before they departed, See to it, O ye lords, in your several places stir the people up, and wherever ye find kings or queens or generals surrounded by spirits that urge them on in their affairs, cut off those spirits, leaving the mortals destitute of inspiration, and their kingdoms and armies will become disorganized and helpless. And whenever, and after whenever has reference number 35, whenever the mortals, Samati and Zarathustra. Okay, back up. Verse 24. And whenever Samati and Zarathustra come to a city, go ye also laboring with them. And when Zarathustra holdeth up his hands and saith, O Father, light of thy light, gather ye of the substance around about, and shield him with a wall of fire. And if Zarathustra say, O Father, or Maz, give thy children food, then shall ye cast down from the air above fish and fruit. And if a king or a captain raise a hand against Zarathustra, gather ye about him and shield him. And if a man draw a sword against Zarathustra, catch ye the blade and break it into pieces. Jehovah spake to Yima, saying, The time will come when the present mortal kingdoms will fall, but the followers of Zarathustra, who will succeed them under Zarathustrian law, shall be protected, even as ye, during the dawn, protect Zarathustra. For which reason Thy lords shall raise up other lords to take their places after the ascent of this dawn. And it shall come to pass that the all light and all truth and all success shall come to mortals through the priests, rabbis, who shall succeed Zarathustra. But as for kings of great cities who will not accept my light, they shall go down in darkness, and their kingdoms shall fall to pieces. Yima, having established his lords, now turned his attention to the heavenly kingdom of Hades. Chapter 33. Jehovah said to Yima, Thou shalt separate the spirits, the partly light from the wholly dark. Build thou therefore a throne and a plateau sufficient for 3,000 million souls. And because there are more females than males, thou shalt call the place of thy throne Ashtoreth. And when thou hast provided a house for thy council, thou shalt send forth selectors who shall bring unto thee as many as choose to come, and these shall be the foundation of thy kingdom. Yima proceeded as commanded by the Father, and presently he had congregated around about Ashtoreth a sufficient number to establish places of amusement, places of worship, and places of learning. Again, the voice came to Yima, saying, Because thy kingdom is attractive, thou art flooded with idlers who are of no profit to any person in heaven or earth. To keep them away, thou shalt wall thy kingdom around with pillars of fire. For thus have I created man, that to whom putteth him away, he will return with zeal. Because thou shalt make thy labor seclusive, they will run for thee. Don't that just sound like Regents? Oh, this is private. Now everybody want to get in. At first, when it's open and free, don't nobody, what y'all talking about? Y'all just talking about, but make it, turn the group private. Oh, why it's private? What they talking about? They sharing secrets now? Chiquita, shalom. We got this thing about finding out, want to hear a secret, right? What is, girl, what they say? What? And they say, look, y'all, let me tell y'all. Everybody get quiet. Right, everybody knows it. Listen. Because thy kingdom is attractive, thou art flooded with idlers who are of no profit to any person in heaven or earth. To keep them away, thou shalt wall thy kingdom around with pillars of fire. For thus have I created man, that to whom putteth him away, he will return with zeal. Because thou shalt make thy labor seclusive, they will run for thee. And when they come to thee, thou shalt bargain with them for righteous behavior, ere thou feedest them. And when thou hast thus gathered in all who come in this way, thou wilt not yet have the hold on. And when thou hast thus gathered in all who come in this way, thou wilt not yet have the half. But those who are left will be without judgment, and thou shalt take possession of them and bestow them in colonies, and thou shalt rank them. The lowest of all shall be the first rank. Those who come after the pillars of fire are those who come after the pillars of fire are built shall be the second rank, and those who come with the selectors shall be called the third rank. And thou shalt divide thine own host. Those who go with thy lords down to mortals as guardian spirits shall be called Ashars, and they shall bring the spirits of the newly dead and deliver them to thy host in heaven, which host shall be called Asaphs. So we learned a little bit about the Ashars and the Asaphs in earlier chapters. And the Ashars shall drive all spirits away from mortals, save such as are appointed by thee or thy lords. For above all things, thou shalt seek to become controller over mortals to the end that they become faithless in me and my dominion. Yima then divided the spirits of heaven according to the commandments of the Creator. After that, he took possession of the wandering spirits of darkness, whether they were on earth or in heaven, and he had taken them into places prepared for them. And he provided them with physicians, nurses, and teachers, and they were made to understand they were dead as to their earth bodies, and that they must give up the earth. Let me read this again. You talking to me? Yeah, I'm talking to you. You know I want to go with you somewhere. Where we going? Just hurry up. Okay. I'll be finished in 5 minutes, so I'm about to go. Yima then divided the spirits of heaven according to the commandments of the Creator. After that, he took possession of the wandering spirits of darkness, whether they were on the earth or in heaven. And he had them taken into places prepared for them, and he provided them with physicians, nurses, and teachers, and they were made to understand they were dead as to their earth bodies, and that they must give up the earth. After this, Yima established places of learning in heaven and places of labor, teaching the angels to clothe and feed themselves by their own industry. Again, the voice of Jehovah came to Yima, saying, Behold, my son, the lower heaven hath reached Spioki? What? SCPE apostrophe OKE. Spioki. I don't know. It is therefore the time in which angels of the first grade be taught to build heavenly mansions. Yima commanded the teachers and the superintendents of factories to prohibit the spirits from returning to mortals save by permission. Yima said it is wiser to inspire spirits, not the spirits is reference 36, and 36 at the bottom says mortals. It is wiser to inspire spirits to rise in heaven after death than to have them ever drawing the angels down to the earth. And my lords on the earth shall labor to this end also. So Yima taught new inspirations both in heaven and on earth, which were that of the angels of the dead should build homes in heaven for their kindred, and that mortals should be taught that there were mansions in heaven ready for their souls after death. So we do read we do read about JC saying this in the New Testament about the mansions. I go away, to build, I ain't read it in so long. My father building many mansions in heaven. Y'all know the scripture I'm talking about, right? But they don't give us all the rest of this extra stuff. So, but also, I think at least I did. Excuse me, y'all. Clear my throat. Oh my goodness. At least with my understanding, not too long ago, because y'all heard me saying it a lot, that we inherit the earth. We inherit the earth. But now I'm seeing, like, as I read more of this, how my understanding was still a lot faulty in what was really happening, because if we stay here on the earth, we actually do injury to our, after we pass away, if we linger around here, we do injury to ourselves. And the longer we take to continue to progress on, it's like the more our spirits degenerate into darkness, because once we leave here, we should go. So we definitely don't want to do that, right? We want to keep progressing in school. Yima said, mortals becoming founded in this belief will not so readily become wandering spirits after death. Okay, let's go back and read 12 again. It is wiser to inspire spirits or mortals to rise in heaven after death than to have them ever drawing the angels down to the earth. And my lords on the earth shall labor to this end also. So Yima taught new inspirations both in heaven and on earth, which were that the angels of the dead should build homes in heaven for their kindred, and that mortals should be taught that there were mansions in heaven ready for their souls after death. Toilet boy quit coming over here half naked.
Nobody wants to see your body.
He forgot I was live.
I think so.
Yeah.
Man, I like that.
Yima said, mortals becoming founded in this belief will not so readily become wandering spirits after death. So, meaning it's good that we learn this now, right? That when we pass, we shouldn't be lingering around here trying to hang out with mama and dad and our cousins and them, right? We got to go. If we understand that before we pass away, we're not at a great risk of becoming wanderers just lingering around here, right? Yima said, mortals becoming founded in this belief will not so readily become wandering spirits after death. Whilst Yima was thus building in heaven, his lords, with their attendant spirits, were manifesting on earth as had never been before since the foundation of this world. The temples of the stars were broken and thrown down by the spirits. The iron gates of the cities were taken off and carried into the forest. The palaces of kings and queens were unroofed, and the stones of the walls of the palaces were hurled from their places. Even to the foundation, one stone was not left upon another, and these things were done by the spirits of heaven. Remember JC saying something about this and the stones of Jerusalem, not one stone being left upon another? Interesting. And men and women and children were carried in the air by the angels and unharmed. The household goods were carried out, and the food of the tables stripped off, even as mortals sat down to feast, and they were made to behold the food going away. With their own eyes beheld they these things. And mortals were made to see visions and dream dreams of prophecy and to have unusual powers. And in many places, the spirits took on sargis and walked about amongst mortals, being seen and felt, and they talked audibly, explaining to mortals the dominion of Yima and his lords. In all things that Yima and his hosts did in heaven, his lords worked in harmony with him in their labor on the earth. Nevertheless, there were also vagrant spirits on the earth who belonged not to the kingdoms of heaven, but who made manifestations on their own account, and they were given to lying and to flattery and to evil generally. Yima, little by little, cut off these evil spirits and took them away to his colonies and disciplined them. Such then were Yima's labors when Fragapati came to see him, to honor which occasion Yima had proclaimed recreation in Ashtoreth and invited his lords and captains and others to be present and take part in a season of enjoyment. And this is where we're going to pause at for today, my beautiful people. We're at an hour and 3 minutes. All right, you're welcome, Lindsay. All right, y'all. So we'll pause right here. Remember, y'all can go ahead and keep reading ahead. This is just going to get better and better. If y'all have not read the book of Esther, starting at like the next to the last chapter, chapter 20, and into the book of Judgment, if you get time, go ahead. Listen to what I said at the beginning of the video about that and Abraham Lincoln and stuff, and about that seer who was alive during his time, Nettie. I'm sorry, I give her name again. What was the page? Nettie Maynard. Go look it up. Go look it up. All right, y'all. So with that being said, I really enjoyed the reading today. We're going to get back to finishing the rest of the meditation, but we only got like a few pages. But I feel like we should just like kind of like read ahead for a little bit. And we're going to finish that up. I promise y'all we're going to finish it up and get to the next one. All right. So with that being said, y'all, it is Wednesday, June the 15th, 2022. This is day 133 of year 4 of reading through the books of the law and the prophets. Another 4-year consecutive day count, day 1151. We read pages 217 through page 222 in the Oahspe. All right, y'all. So I don't have anything else. I will share shortly what I said I was going to share at the beginning about Abraham Lincoln and the seer and what was happening during the heavenly account. But I don't think none of us alive today was alive when Lincoln was president. But while we were seeing the things play out in Guatemala, remember Guatemala is one of the original names for America. While we were here in Guatemala, or our ancestors here in Guatemala, experiencing those things with slavery through Lincoln's administration, this gives the heavenly account of what was happening, which caused that to happen here on the earth. This is just, it's amazing. The more stuff I find out, I'm gonna share with y'all. And like I said in the beginning, if you find out some stuff that I haven't come across yet, share it with a sister, right? We got to talk about everything. Everything got to be on the table to make sense of all of this is what's happening, right? All right, y'all. So if y'all living in America, y'all thinking about moving somewhere else, if you are absolutely certain that it's not the spirit of Yah, or you've been waiting to be delivered from Babylon, hold your places. Don't move. Don't go anywhere. I don't think we're supposed to be going anywhere. As of today, with what I know and understand today, those of us here, we ain't supposed to be going nowhere. This is where let's say the showdown happens, right? And we supposed to be here. We're here because we're supposed to be here at this time, not having them trick us and uproot from here and give up our inheritance that was originally ordained for us to be here. Don't move, people. Don't move. I know that might sound like blasphemy, especially in some of the Hebrew roots movement and this back to Africa thing. We're pulling all the pieces together, and the pieces is telling us that we're supposed to hold steady right where we at. All right, right? Which is probably why some of y'all still waiting at the edge of the water, waiting for ships in that boat coming to get you. Ain't showed up yet. It ain't coming, my G. You're supposed to be here. Adjust your focus. All right. So with that being said, I love y'all. May y'all continue to bless you and keep you in all that you do. And may He help us understand all this information that we sorting out that we can put on the table. I love y'all. I see y'all back here tomorrow morning, bright and early, 7:15 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Chiquita, you're welcome. You're welcome. Peace.